Electronics often go wrong in crop circles. Some people will describe a strange tingling, headaches, or feeling rather ill.
Crop circles appear in more than 50 countries, and there literally have been thousands of them, maybe over 10,000 crop circles that we're aware of in the modern era.
For more than half a century, thousands of crop circles have appeared around the world, one of the greatest mysteries humanity has yet to solve. Recently, a team of engineers decided to conduct an experiment unlike anything ever attempted before. They fed more than 1,000 images of crop circles from around the world into an AI system, with the sole purpose of training it to recognize geometric patterns. But after only a short period of analysis, the AI began doing something no one had asked it to do. It started linking crop circles that had appeared decades apart in different countries, and discovered that they seemed to follow the same hidden geometric structure, one that was almost impossible for the human eye to detect. To the AI, these were no longer isolated drawings. They looked like pieces of the same system. What stunned the entire research team was that this system matched none of the languages, algorithms, or data models the AI had ever been trained on. The engineers immediately instructed the AI to try decoding it. A few minutes later, the result appeared on the screen, and the entire laboratory fell silent. What had the AI seen? And could the mysterious circles that have appeared for more than 50 years really be hiding a message that humanity is only beginning to recognize? After the warning appeared, the atmosphere inside the laboratory changed completely. Everyone present understood that in AI research, an anomalous signal is always worth investigating. It could be nothing more than a minor error, or it could be the first sign of a much bigger discovery. The research team decided to start over from the beginning. They gathered more than 1,000 crop circle images recorded over nearly half a century, ranging from simple circles in southern England to intricate designs found in Germany, the Netherlands, Canada, and Brazil. Instead of analyzing each phenomenon individually as previous studies had done, they fed the entire dataset into a single system and allowed the AI to search for hidden connections among them. The processing went remarkably smoothly. The system quickly identified familiar geometric forms, measured their symmetry, compared the proportions between circles, and reconstructed the structure of each design. Simpler patterns were placed into one category, while more complex, multi-layered designs were sorted into another. Every result matched what the research team had expected, until one particular group of crop circles appeared. The analysis suddenly slowed down. A warning appeared on the screen, one that had never shown up at any point during the entire experiment. The AI flagged these formations as a highly structured group, yet the entire system could not find any corresponding model within the dataset it had been trained on. The engineers immediately checked everything again. They adjusted the analysis parameters, removed low-quality images, and added more data from multiple independent sources. After every new run, the result remained exactly the same. At that point, everyone's attention shifted to the crop circles that had triggered the warning. What made them unusual was that many formations that looked completely different on the surface were being grouped together by the AI. As the team examined them more closely, they discovered that they all shared the same geometric organization. The proportions between circular arcs, the positions of their centers, the way the circles intersected, and the repeating symmetrical modules all followed the same consistent pattern, even though each crop circle had appeared in a different country and at a different point in time. An even more remarkable discovery soon emerged. When each crop circle was analyzed individually, it appeared to be nothing more than an independent design. But when the AI placed dozens of them side by side, numerous geometric modules began connecting into a much larger network, like symbols repeatedly appearing within the same writing system. The system still could not determine the meaning of those modules, but for the first time, the AI suggested that these crop circles seemed to have been constructed according to the same underlying logic, rather than having formed independently. And if a single common logic truly exists behind all of them, then what rules is it following? The entire direction of the research changed immediately afterward. Instead of continuing to search for similarities in shape, the research team shifted to a far more difficult objective: determining the true nature of the system the AI had just discovered. This time, each crop circle was treated as a dataset capable of carrying information. The AI began comparing the geometric rules within the designs against a wide range of databases developed over decades, from modern encryption algorithms and the GenBank database containing hundreds of millions of DNA sequences to digitized ancient scripts from Egypt, the Maya civilization, and Mesopotamia. Familiar mathematical models such as the Fibonacci sequence, Penrose tiling, fractal geometry, crystal lattices, and wave interference patterns in physics were also introduced one by one for comparison. The initial results were quite intriguing. Some crop circles contained proportions close to the Fibonacci sequence. Others displayed symmetries similar to structures commonly found in crystallography. A few designs even exhibited interference patterns remarkably similar to wave simulations used in optics. However, each comparison explained only a very small part of the overall picture. As the scope of the analysis expanded, those similarities gradually disappeared, and every line of comparison ultimately led to the same conclusion. The crop circles seemed to borrow characteristics from many different systems, yet they did not truly belong to any one of them. It was at that moment that the research team introduced a very straightforward analogy. It was like scanning a QR code. Simply by looking at its shape, you can recognize that it was intentionally created and almost certainly contains information. But to read its contents, the device must understand the correct encoding standard that was used. If the code belongs to a completely unfamiliar format, the scanner can still recognize that it is a structured system, but it cannot translate it into meaningful information. What the AI encountered was remarkably similar. It recognized repeating geometric modules. It identified an exceptionally high level of organization within the designs. It even discovered that crop circles found on different continents were using the very same modules. But when it reached the interpretation stage, the entire process came to a halt. Not because the data lacked consistency, but because the body of knowledge the AI had been trained on contained no frame of reference capable of explaining them. What proved even more remarkable was the AI's own response. In unsupervised learning models, when the system encounters data patterns that are fundamentally different, it can create an entirely new classification cluster instead of forcing them into existing categories. That is exactly what happened. The crop circles that had triggered the earlier warning continued to be grouped into their own distinct data cluster, completely separated from every familiar geometric category. The research team reran the entire process using multiple sets of parameters. They added more data, removed formations that were likely to be human-made hoaxes, and repeated the analysis over and over again. The results barely changed. By this point, the investigation had entered an entirely new phase. The AI could demonstrate that these circles shared a common underlying logic. But where that logic came from remained a complete mystery. Perhaps the answer was no longer hidden within the lines of data displayed on the screen. Perhaps it was still waiting where everything had first begun, the fields. Not long afterward, the research team left the laboratory and began comparing the AI's findings with locations where crop circles had been documented over the past several decades. Their goal was not to prove a shocking hypothesis, but to answer a much more fundamental question. Among the thousands of crop circles that have appeared around the world, how many cases are actually worth investigating? The first answer turned out to be much simpler than many people expected. A great many crop circles really were created by humans. In 1991, two Englishmen, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley, publicly admitted that they had created hundreds of crop circles since the late 1970s, using nothing more than simple tools such as ropes, wooden stakes, and wooden planks to bend crop stalks along carefully planned paths. Their confession shocked the media and convinced many people that the mystery of crop circles had finally been solved. In the years that followed, numerous groups of artists continued to demonstrate the same thing. Using high-precision GPS equipment, laser measuring devices, and carefully prepared blueprints, they were able to complete highly complex designs in just a single night. Today, some crop circles are even created as works of art or commercial promotional projects, with their creators openly taking responsibility for them. That meant a significant portion of this phenomenon already had an explanation. For that reason, the research team decided to remove every case with an identified creator from the database. They kept only those crop circles for which no one had ever claimed responsibility. that had complete field documentation and that had been independently recorded by multiple sources. The results surprised them. After the filtering process, hundreds of cases still met those criteria. Among them were several names that had remained the subject of debate for many years. One of the most famous was the Milk Hill Formation, which appeared in Wiltshire in August 2001. This design measured more than 250 meters in diameter and consisted of approximately 409 circles, arranged in an extraordinarily complex spiral pattern. Just one day earlier, the field had appeared completely normal. By the following morning, the entire formation had appeared almost perfectly intact. To this day, no verified evidence has identified who created it. Milk Hill was only one part of a much larger picture. When the research team plotted every unexplained crop circle on a map, they found that most of them were concentrated around Wiltshire and southern England. This is also home to Stonehenge, Avebury, Silbury Hill, and Barbury Castle, renowned archaeological complexes dating from approximately 4,500 to more than 5,000 years ago. Many geologists argued that this is simply a region with vast wheat fields, flat terrain, and ideal conditions for creating large-scale designs. However, other researchers have questioned why the phenomenon has continued to recur around the same area for decades, while many other agricultural regions around the world with similar conditions have produced far fewer crop circles. The more they compared the data, the more complicated the picture became. Some crop circles were clearly the work of humans. Some cases were almost certainly elaborate hoaxes. But there was also a small group that remained beyond every explanation. Remarkably, it was this very group of crop circles that matched the patterns which had repeatedly triggered warnings during the AI analysis. At this point, there was only one way for the investigation to continue. They had to return to the fields, because if those circles were truly concealing an underlying pattern, the first clues would always be found where they had appeared. After identifying the crop circles worth investigating, the real work finally began. This time, the researchers were no longer looking at aerial photographs or models generated by AI. They stepped directly into the fields, because if an unusual phenomenon truly existed, the first traces had to be found right on the ground. Over the past 30 years, many independent research groups have carried out this work. Among the names most often mentioned are the BLT Research Team, researcher Colin Andrews, and plant biophysicist W.C. Levengood. Although their conclusions remain highly controversial, the thousands of plant samples, soil samples, and field data they collected have become an important source of material in crop circle research. The first thing examined was always the crop stalks themselves. In crop circles confirmed to have been made by humans, wheat stalks are usually pressed down with wooden boards or mechanical tools. As a result, many stalks show breaks, cracks, or crushing at the points where force was applied. However, at some crop circles whose origins have not been identified, researchers recorded a very different phenomenon. Many stalks were not broken. Instead, they bent directly at the nodes, as if the stalks had softened for a very short period of time before falling over. What is especially notable is that after several days or weeks, many of the plants continued growing in their new direction and completed their normal development cycle. That was only the initial observation. When the plant samples were brought back to the laboratory, W.C. Levengood reported that many nodes on the stalks were larger than normal by approximately 10 to 40%, compared with control samples taken just outside the crop circle. He proposed that this phenomenon might be related to a heat source acting for a very short period of time, causing water vapor inside the stalks to expand rapidly before the plants were pressed down. However, this mechanism has still not been consistently proven, and many other laboratories have not been able to fully reproduce the results. After the plants, the survey shifted to the soil layer. BLT research reported that at some locations, they discovered metallic microspheres with diameters of only about 20 to 100 micrometers, many times smaller than a human hair. Some soil samples also showed slight differences in magnetic iron content or mineral composition, compared with areas only a few meters away. Some research groups also conducted magnetic field measurements at the sites. At a few crop circles, they recorded small changes in magnetic intensity or soil electrical resistance. However, the degree of change was very low and did not appear consistently across locations. These findings quickly created two opposing schools of thought. Some researchers argued that these signs could reflect a physical process that is not yet fully understood. Meanwhile, many other scientists argued that these differences could entirely result from geological conditions, moisture levels, microbial activity, or errors during sampling and analysis. To verify this, many independent laboratories repeated the measurements over the following years. The results once again split into two groups. Some studies observed similar phenomena, others found nothing unusual at all. That is why the debate has continued to this day. What is interesting is that this very lack of consistency is what makes crop circles such a distinctive subject in science. If every result were the same, the mystery might have been solved long ago. If all of it were merely error, the phenomenon would also have been closed off. But reality lies somewhere between those two extremes. Some crop circles are completely ordinary. Others leave behind traces that still do not have a unified explanation. And if those changes truly are not just the result of environmental conditions or errors during the survey process, then what created them? The plant samples, soil samples, and laboratory analysis results showed one thing very clearly. Some crop circles really do have unusual characteristics. But that is not enough to conclude anything. In science, a phenomenon is accepted only after every simpler explanation has been considered first. For that reason, the research team decided to return to the beginning and examine, one by one, the hypotheses that had been proposed over more than half a century. The first hypothesis was localized whirlwinds, also known as dust devils. These are small, rotating columns of air that often appear on hot, sunny days and are capable of flattening crops into circular or spiral shapes. Some meteorologists have suggested that this phenomenon could explain the simple crop circles recorded since the 1970s. In some cases, this hypothesis is entirely reasonable. But when the investigation shifted to crop circles that appeared from the late 1990s onward, everything began to change. Many designs contained hundreds of separate components, near perfect symmetry, and arrangements based on multi-layered geometric rules. Some even resembled fractal models, such as the Julia set, or contained repeating geometric sequences with extremely precise spacing. To date, no meteorological model has demonstrated that a natural rotating column of air could create patterns like these across an area hundreds of meters wide, while still preserving an almost uniform level of precision across the entire field. The next hypothesis involved electromagnetism and atmospheric plasma. Since the 1990s, some researchers have proposed that phenomena such as ball lightning or plasma vortices could produce localized heat, thereby affecting the plant stalks and the soil beneath them. This hypothesis is often used to explain reports of elongated nodes, metallic microspheres, or small magnetic changes recorded at some crop circles. However, the biggest problem remains scale. To date, there is no experimental evidence showing that natural plasma phenomena can create complex geometric structures more than 100 meters long, with hundreds of components arranged in a stable order. The explanation most widely accepted by many scientists is still humans. In reality, this explanation has a very solid basis. As early as the beginning of the 1990s, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley demonstrated that with only ropes, wooden stakes, and wooden planks, they could create crop circles convincing enough to fool the media. Later, the artist group Circle Makers also created extremely complex designs using GPS, laser measuring devices, and pre-prepared blueprints, showing that humans are fully capable of producing patterns with very high precision. But even this hypothesis has not closed every debate. Some crop circles more than 200 meters in diameter appeared in just one night. Many cases were discovered early in the morning when the field still held its layer of dew. Yet there were almost no traces of a group of people moving continuously for many hours. There are also designs for which, even today, no individual or organization has ever come forward to claim authorship. That does not prove they are beyond human capability, but it also makes accurately reconstructing the formation process of each case extremely difficult. After many months of comparing the data, the research team recognized one common point. Whirlwinds can explain some crop circles. Plasma can explain a few signs recorded in the field. Humans have certainly created a great many crop circles, but each hypothesis explains only one part of the picture. No hypothesis has yet been able to encompass the entire phenomenon recorded over more than 50 years. That was also when the research team began to question their own approach. For decades, crop circles had always been treated as isolated events. Each time a new formation appeared, researchers tried to find an explanation for that specific formation. But if the AI was right, then perhaps we had been looking in the wrong direction from the very beginning. Perhaps the meaning of a single crop circle had never been the important thing, because the answer only begins to emerge when all of them are placed side by side, like pieces of one much larger picture. After weeks of field surveys, ruling out natural hypotheses, and comparing each individual case, the investigation returned to exactly where it had begun, the data set. But this time, the AI was no longer being asked to find an explanation for a specific crop circle. The new task had only one objective: to observe the entire history of this phenomenon as if it were a story stretching across more than half a century. More than 1,000 crop circles were arranged according to the exact time they appeared, from the late 1970s to the most recent designs. Each formation was scored based on the number of components, the degree of symmetry, geometric repetition, and the overall complexity of its structure. When the chart was complete, the entire research team immediately noticed a very clear trend. The earliest crop circles were relatively simple. Most consisted of only one or a few concentric circles, basic curves, and easily recognizable symmetrical patterns. These were also the kinds of designs that many artist groups later successfully recreated using manual tools. But as the timeline moved into the 1990s, the chart began to change. The number of components in each design increased rapidly. The circles began to interlock. Symmetry shifted from a single layer to multiple layers. Self-repeating patterns, once familiar mainly in mathematics, began appearing more and more often. That was also the period when crop circles began attracting more attention from the scientific community than before. In 1996, a crop circle appeared near Stonehenge and stunned many people. This design later became known as the Julius set, almost completely resembling a famous fractal model in mathematics. What was remarkable was not the drawing itself, but the fact that a structure consisting of hundreds of components had been created in a field within a very short period of time. In 2001, Milk Hill pushed the debate even further. With approximately 409 circles spread across an area more than 250 meters wide, it remains one of the largest crop circles ever recorded. Just 1 year later, at Crabwood, another design appeared, along with a sequence of binary characters. Many people believed it was a form of message, while many other researchers considered it merely an extremely elaborate staged work of art. To this day, that debate has still not reached an end. What interested the research team was not each individual case, it was the overall trend. When all the crop circles were placed on the same timeline, the AI recorded that their level of complexity had increased fairly steadily across the decades. That was only a statistical result. The AI could not explain why it had happened, nor could it determine whether the trend came from the development of technology or from some other cause. For many researchers, the explanation was fairly reasonable. Humans increasingly have access to more powerful tools. High-precision GPS, three-dimensional design software, laser measuring devices, and drones have made the creation of complex geometric forms far easier than it was 40 years ago. That is a completely reasonable explanation. But then the AI pointed out one more detail. Among the crop circles whose origins had not been identified, the level of complexity also increased almost along the same trend. That was when the investigation moved in an entirely new direction. Was this simply the natural development of crop circle art across the decades? Or were these symbols becoming increasingly complex for another reason? As if they had never been created for the people of 1975, but for a moment in the future, when technology would finally become capable of reading what was hidden inside them. If that is only a hypothesis, it still needs to be verified. But if one day that hypothesis becomes true, perhaps the thing most worth waiting for will not be the next crop circle appearing in some field, but the first day humanity truly understands the meaning of everything that has appeared over more than 50 years. After months of data analysis, field surveys, and eliminating a series of hypotheses, the investigation finally returned to the very first question. What had the AI actually seen? Up to this point, the answer had not changed. The AI did not prove that crop circles are messages, nor did it prove that they have extraterrestrial origins, or disprove the fact that most crop circles are the work of humans. The only thing the AI pointed out was something very simple, but also deeply worth considering. Among the thousands of crop circles that have appeared over more than half a century, there may exist a group that shares the same consistent geometric logic. If separated individually, they are almost nothing more than strange patterns in fields. But when placed side by side, they begin to reveal rules that were previously extremely difficult to recognize. That made many people think of one of the most famous turning points in the history of archaeology. For nearly 2,000 years, Egyptian hieroglyphs remained visible on temples, tombs, and ancient stone tablets. People saw them every day, but no one still knew how to read them. Only when the Rosetta Stone was discovered in 1799, with the same text engraved in 3 different writing systems, did scholars finally gain the key to gradually decode an entire civilization that had disappeared. What changed was never the symbols on the stone. What changed was humanity's ability to understand them. Perhaps crop circles are in a similar situation? For more than 50 years, those circles have continued to appear. What has changed may not necessarily be the circles themselves, but the way we observe them. From aerial photographs taken from airplanes in the late 1970s, to ultra-high-resolution satellite imagery, from geophysical survey equipment, to artificial intelligence capable of analyzing millions of data points in a very short period of time. Each new generation of technology helps humanity see another part of the picture that the previous generation could not see. AI may never be able to decode crop circles, but for the first time, it has made researchers consider a very different possibility. What if crop circles were never completely independent phenomena? If that is true, perhaps what we are missing is not another new crop circle appearing, but a Rosetta Stone for this phenomenon itself. A key powerful enough to connect everything recorded over more than half a century into one complete story. Until that key appears, every hypothesis remains only a hypothesis. Every new discovery will open even more questions. And perhaps. That is exactly what makes crop circles one of the most fascinating mysteries of the modern age. What about you? After all the evidence and hypotheses in this video, which possibility do you believe in the most? Is this simply the development of human-made crop circle art? Or has AI accidentally discovered a pattern that we still do not have the tools to fully understand? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I will read every opinion, and who knows, perhaps one of your perspectives will become the starting point for the next investigation. If you enjoy stories of exploration, archaeology, and mysteries that still keep science debating, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next videos.